Welcome back, everyone, to Nopes and Opes. I am Rowan, joined by my two co-hosts, Hylan and Lancelot.
Yeah.
And we're here. We're back. We're ready to start making some Nopes and Opes again. Hylan, how we doing? Let's check in.
I mean, I have no complaints whatsoever, man. Life's been treating me really well. Yeah, things have been moving forward in some pretty positive ways for me. So, yeah, I'm happy to be back. Yeah, I mean, it's nice. I mean, we don't get the opportunity as much as we did before, and that kind of makes it even a little bit more special and kind of adds a little bit of more of urgency and kind of just a little bit more magic, I think, to these moments because they aren't as given as they were before, and you kind of have to work a little bit harder. And I think that's just makes it all the more cool for me.
One thing I want to address, just out the gate, something that's been coming up a lot in my personal life is people refer to Hylan as my 50-year-old boyfriend. And I think I need to address the rumors because recently I was listening to a podcast episode and we could not sound more like we were in a relationship. Because the way I started off, the way I started off the episode, and I'll play, if I have to make this a clip, I'll play the clip now. But I say something along the lines of like, yeah, it's me and Hylan's first time back together after the long break. We sound like we're in a relationship. We're not. We're both.
We are in a relationship.
We're in a form of a relationship.
Intimate boyfriend.
Yeah. Last night, me and Hylan went on our movie date night when he came into town.
Oh, that's so funny.
So yeah, it's been pretty funny. I told Hylan this last night, but when I first was like telling my parents, like we started hanging out and making the podcast and whatnot, my dad legitimately asked me, and was he serious? I don't know. It's just kind of how my dad is, but he was like, Is he gay? Like, is it a young strapping man with an older wise dude? Like, what's going on? I'm like, nope, both straight, very straight men. So
no, but I've told you that I get that question a lot.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know what the heck it is. Like, I think I'm pretty, like, kind of like not like I think. Oh, I mean, in my mind, I'm pretty sure. Like we was talking about this before, but. Yeah, man. Like I get that a lot. Like a lot of people are like, "Are you sure you're not gay?" I'm like, I mean, I'm 50 years old. Like I'm pretty sure. Like I've done the thinking. I'm pretty sure.
Same. Well, like I do some very kind of, I guess, flamboyant things. Like I'm very animated. Like my face moves a lot. I do some things that people would deem as flamboyant. And I had someone at work that I think is convinced that I am gay.
Well, I think like. I don't. I think like I'm very subdued.
Yeah, you're not flamboyant in any way.
And so I don't understand, but it happens quite a bit. I mean, like legit, and people are like very serious about it. And like they're like telling me like, no, I think you're gay. And I'm like, I'm like, nope. And they're like, no, like you should think about it. Like I'm pretty sure, like deep down, like I'm like,
it's very interesting for someone else to tell you, like, no, you need to look inside and figure it out.
But no, I mean, I'm not saying anything bad or this or that or anything, but I just, it's happened enough, like throughout my lifetime too. Like, I mean, probably the most times was in LA and, but I had this long, like just gnarly, like natty dread, just oil caked, nasty. Like I looked, like, I can look pretty haggard now, but I mean, I took a picture, like on Venice Beach, just laying on the grass, like surrounded by like garbage bags and stuff. And it legit looks like I am freaking homeless.
Yeah.
Like my.
What was the reasoning behind taking a picture next to garbage bags?
Just to see like if I could pull off the homeless look. And I pulled it off so well that I began to be like, ooh, like I need to go that like not try to pretend to be homeless. Like I need to try.
Yeah, we need to reverse.
Yeah, like I've gotten so good at looking homeless that I need to kind of put some effort into not looking homeless these days.
Well, one of the things that I just think our dynamic, our friendship is very uncommon, right?
Oh, absolutely.
Anytime I share with someone like, oh, I have a 50-year-old friend that I record a podcast with, the face of the people I tell is always kind of like
the eyebrows raised.
Yeah, they're kind of like, huh.
maybe a wink.
Interesting. Yeah. And I'm like, no. That's legitimately what it is. So it's just a bit kind of funny thing that kind of comes along. And, we joke about it anytime Highland comes into town and whatnot. Cause it's, I mean,
Well,
props to you,
we
man.
take like romantic walks in
Yeah,
the
we do take
twilight
walks.
together,
Yep.
and yeah, I
We
mean,
sit by the fire and
yeah,
have a beer and talk and
yeah,
whatnot. So it's very much a bromance for sure.
yeah, yeah. And
But
I think it's cool actually because like I mean like I grew up in a time like I think it's changed quite a bit, and I applaud the youth of today for being more accepting and kind of
no.
more, but like up until a very recent kind of point in my life, like I wouldn't feel comfortable. Like I would be on my guard, like trying to pretend to be manly and like not
Mm,
like
yeah.
if someone like I'd go to the extremes to be like, no man, like I'm super straight, this and that, da da
Yeah.
da. And now I can just embrace it. It's like,
Yeah.
okay, fine. If you think I'm gay, it's not a big deal.
Well,
Like,
there's a
go
nice
ahead.
there's a nice kind of like excuse me. There's a nice kind of like fluidity. Like I like to kind of play around. Like I am very comfortable in my sexuality, right? But I can kind of, I don't know, I guess play both sides of the game in a weird way. Like for instance, like I went out with a bunch of ladies one time. It was girls' night. I wasn't aware that it was girls' nights beforehand, right? I was a friend of mine was like, "Hey, I'm going out with a bunch of my friends to like a Mexican restaurant, and then after we're gonna go to the club." And I was like, "Awesome, let's do it." Right?
Sounds great. Yeah.
I thought friends meant like all different kinds of people. I show up, it's 9 women. I'm like, you
Oh.
invited me to girls' night. And she's like, no, it's not. I was like, there's only women here. And so to make the women a little bit more comfortable, I kind of played it a little bit more flamboyant. So
Yeah.
like I got a strawberry margarita. I was kind of being sassy and it was fun. Like I can kind of dive into that side. I basically was Winston from New Girl, which is a show that a lot of the friend group that I was with had watched. And so like I would get a margarita and be like, look at me being so naughty. And like all those things got them to like relax and have fun with me.
Yeah.
But someone could look at that and be like, this dude's gay. And I'm like, I'm not, but like I can have fun, if that makes sense.
Well, I mean, I do think it's important. Like last weekend, I went to a birthday party, a 50th birthday party for one of my best friends growing up, and it was an incredible weekend. Like it was so much fun. But the Friday night that we got there was kind of more of an intimate group, and we had just kind of like some real close people that kind of were close to him throughout his life and shared some pretty intimate things. And one of the things that was mentioned was that this kid who I grew up with, he's like one of my oldest friends and one of my
Yeah.
best friends, but he just has the ability to be in touch with both, like he's very masculine,
Mhm.
but also is deeply connected to like the feminine, the more kind of softer side.
Yeah.
And that's like just again and again, like as everybody spoke about him, it was just kind of was mentioned, like he portrays both and just isn't so in touch with both sides of
Mhm.
himself, and I think that's ultra important, right? Especially in the world today, like where we are so divided and so kind of into these roles.
Yeah.
Like we kind of get kind of like pigeonholed, and like we kind of get trapped almost, and we feel like, oh, we have to portray this.
Yeah.
And it's like, come on, man. Like we're all humans. We all have different aspects. We all have different emotions, sides, whatever.
Yeah.
Like let's be in touch with all of it. But yeah, it's just a cool aspect of that one individual, but also I think super important for the rest of us as well.
Yeah. Well, I mean, on that note, like that's something I've actually struggled with in my own personal life. So my dad, Faja, as we've mentioned on the podcast, is a very like he's an alpha, right?
Yeah.
A very manly man, right? Big, strong guy. In any emergency situation, he's cool, calm, and collected. And I've admired that. And I always wanted to be presumed as one of those guys, right? Like an intimidating, masculine man.
Mm.
Not what happens to me. Most of the time, people are like, all right, tough guy, like whatever, right?
Yeah.
And so I kind of play into like the goofy, kind of like jester type, because that's where, I don't know, I get people to kind of like me.
Yeah.
But in certain circumstances, like I am when I say I'm an emotional person, it doesn't necessarily mean that like I'm constantly crying. I was when I was in Minnesota. That was a different time. No, the reason I say that is
Oh.
because I feel like I am very emotionally intelligent. Like I
Yeah.
can have very emotional conversations with people and really listen and kind of like tap into that side of
Yeah. Yeah.
which I think some people might deem as more feminine. Not to say that women or a feminine side are more emotional, but for men, a lot of people look to masculine men not being in touch with their emotions, not talking about their emotions, not crying in front of people. Whereas I can do that, but the problem is for me and what I struggled with is that I always like was really good at that stuff, but I was like, crap. I want to be better at being like the intimidating masculine kind of guy, and that's never happened ever.
Well, I don't think it's so much that you wanted to be better. I just think you wanted other people to recognize that more, right?
Absolutely.
You. I think you do an excellent job, and I don't even know how to say it, but I mean, you present yourself very well. There's no confusion. There's no like, oh, like what the heck. Yeah, I mean, you're a really solid kid all the way around, and
Man.
a very solid. Well, yeah, very solid man,
Nah,
very
don't take
manly
offense.
man, whatever. But no, I think it's just a matter of like we want others to perceive us this way, and
Yep.
sometimes we don't feel like they do, and
Well,
that messes with us.
what's
But
funny is that it's always the opposite of what you are perceived as, right? So like my dad, and you actually asked my dad this, right? My dad is always perceived as a very intimidating figure that's scary and like is not warm or comforting in any way. But when in reality, he's like a cuddly bear. Granted,
a very intelligent, cuddly bear.
he's a bear. Like the bear can come out for
Yeah.
sure,
Yeah,
but he is very like warm and nurturing and just kind of like goofy, right? And it's always this thing of like the way you're perceived, you're kind of put into this box, right?
Yeah,
And then people think of you this way, but you wish that people would see you in a different light.
Yeah, yeah.
Because I don't know, maybe you get tired of it. Maybe like I have gotten tired of it, right? Like a specific instance, right? I used to work at a gym in Minnesota, and sometimes we would have people that were like homeless or had some problems with drugs or whatever. They would kind of come around and cause problems at the front, and it was a very wealthy establishment, so people complained constantly and just didn't like other people around other than members. So they would always say like, oh, and by the way, the gym I worked at, I was surrounded by 6-foot Olympians. All the men that worked there were massive, all above 6 feet, all super ripped. And then I come in at 6'2", not as ripped, but I come in and I'm like, they were like 6'6", 6'7", right?
Yeah,
Like NBA
they're
players. And
huge.
I was, still big, but no, they would say like, oh yeah, like if they're having problems, like we'll just have Aaron go talk to him, and then I would be like,
What about me?
what about me?
Yeah,
And they would laugh, and
Yeah.
I'd be like, I mean, come on, I got this, puff my
Yeah.
chest out and whatnot, and like I play into that, right? And I'm starting, part of accepting and becoming confident is like playing into your strengths.
yeah, yeah.
And now I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm fine. Like,
Yeah.
it's okay. But I still get when people wish that they would be seen in a different light based on, what they are always catered towards or seen as.
Well, you know what's interesting, and you're gonna be like, "Oh, boo-hoo, Highland," like, uh, whatever. But I, I'm listening to this, and I don't know how to say this without sounding like a total
Do it.
jerk. But
Do it.
like I am perceived as that person.
Mhm.
Like, hey, go take care of this, whatever. And I wish I wasn't perceived.
That's
I
what I'm
wish-
saying.
I wish
It's
I could,
always
I
it's
wish I
always
could
the
disappear.
opposite. Yeah.
Yeah, so that's funny. Like, oh, Highland, yeah, like go take care of the situation.
For
Like,
some
you're-
reason, if you're tall, they think you're just stronger or like can fight, and that's not necessarily the case. Not to say that you're not a strong man, but like just because you're tall doesn't mean that you're well-equipped
a lot
in
of
a
times,
fight.
yeah, a lot of times, yeah, I've had people come up to me all the time, like, I mean, not talk to them the whole night, and then they just come up and like, hey, let's get into a fight, and it's like, no, I don't really want to, and I'm just thinking in my head, like, what the heck, like, I don't know you, you don't know me, like, we haven't
Right.
talked the whole night,
Yeah.
and then at the end of the night, they'd just be like, okay, let's do this, and I'm like, no, I'm not gonna.
Yeah.
But yeah, that happens all the time.
Well, I always made the comment, right? So used to be on the lacrosse team, and a lot of the guys on the lacrosse team were very like amped and would want to get into fights because lacrosse is somewhat similar to hockey. Like part of hockey is fighting.
Yeah, yeah.
Like it's a legitimate part of the sport, right? And so lacrosse kind of has some of those tendencies. And a lot of the guys would be like, "Oh God, I wish we can get in like a bench clearing brawl and whatnot." And I'd be like, "No, I have no interest." And they'd be like, "Why, Rowan?" I'm like, "Because I'm the guy that three of the guys on the other team would be like, all right, who am I going to pick?"
Yeah, I'm taking that
And they
guy.
would all pick me,
Yeah.
right? Because I'm not massive,
Yeah.
6'2", but not massive.
Yeah.
And they try
6'2" sometimes, right?
Yeah, sometimes on a good day. Other days, maybe 5'9". I don't know.
Maybe just a bit less.
Yeah, maybe just a bit less. You decide. But but yeah, so people would always pick me to like try and fight me.
Yeah.
Like, I might have said this on the podcast before, but when I was a lifeguard, I have this like dad voice that comes from my fascia and whatnot. And that's what I need to do when I need to, I guess, intimidate someone or try to speak seriously, like, hey, quit doing this. I was at a country club, a very rich country club, and a bunch of, kind of spoiled brats would go swim there. And this kid was there and he just was like, I'm a chill lifeguard. I was like, you can do whatever you want. Just like, don't get on the lane lines. Like if you break those, it costs money. Like, come on. And this kid just kept getting on the lane lines. And so I lower my voice and I'm like, hey, get off the lane line or whatever. Right.
Yeah.
And he just looked at me. He's like, okay, tough guy. And I was like, oh, and he's like 13.
Yeah.
Like he's a child. And I'm like, 18 at the time or something like that. So that was a pretty low blow to confidence. But, these things happen. So that's why I have to approach people in a calm, collected manner and kind of get them on my side. And then I convince them not to do it instead of using an intimidation factor.
Yeah.
Which my dad has gotten away with for years. But, so a little interesting way to start it. So, yeah. But today, other than us talking about me and Highland being boyfriends, we kind of want to talk about something that I've been reading recently based on personalities, which I think I kind of gets into what we were talking about a little bit here today. So I'm going to pull a quote from a book that I've been reading, and I kind of want to get Highland your initial reaction to it.
Yeah.
And then we'll kind of, get into it.
Yeah,
so,
Rowan did not, he prefaced this. He did tell me that he was going to bring these quotes out, but he didn't let me have any warm up or introduction to it. So this is going to be a genuine.
Yeah, we want it to be kind of raw.
Yeah.
So I'm going to pull that quote and then we'll kind of talk about it from there. So I'm going to read a quote here. I'm not going to tell you the book, but it is by the author Robert Greene. I think he's
that's a good hint.
I think he's a very good author. I think he writes some very philosophical and interesting things, which I think me and Highland are very interested in. At least I am. And I think Highland is as well. So.
I'm interested in how Rowan is interpreting and implementing.
Yes.
All of these
implementing
things.
a lot of things.
Yeah.
So
it's been fun. It's been fun to hear the stories.
This is kind of based on personality, right?
Oh, okay.
So I got to be able to read this without them seeing and also hearing my voice. So here goes. Well, will they be able to see what it is?
Oh, yeah. Sorry. Forgot about that.
I don't want people to see. Well, I guess they can't see. All right. Here we go. Our personalities are often molded by how we are treated. If a parent or spouse is defensive or argumentative in dealing with us, we tend to respond in the same way. Never mistake people's exterior characteristics for reality, where the character they show on the surface may be merely a reflection of the people with whom they have been most in contact or front, disguising its own opposite. A gruff exterior may hide a person dying for warmth. A repressed, sober-looking type may actually be struggling to conceal uncontrollable emotions. Do I need to read it again?
No, I mean, I am gonna let you down here, buddy. I mean, I don't think. I do think that as we grow up, we, in a sense, try to go the opposite. Like, if our parents or caregivers are in one extreme, like for example, a lot of kids that have like alcoholic or drug dependent, figures in their lives tend to go to the opposite extreme, or sometimes they follow the same path. But Yeah, I do think we kind of try to become the opposite in some way. Just I think that's natural for the teenage years as well.
Mm-hmm.
Like we don't want to be our parents. We try desperately
Yeah.
to go to the opposite extreme, and then we end up becoming our parents anyways.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would tend to agree with that. I think it's true. A lot of us, and I think we're going to talk a little bit about this as well. But we present something to the outer world that is not really indicative of our inside, our inner world, just because we think like that's what the world wants to see, right? Like you're a sober kind of somber
Yeah.
person on the outside when inside you're just raging and just trying to deal with life. And so yeah, I'm sorry, I don't
No.
disagree with that at all.
No. There's no. You don't need to disagree with it. I'm just interested because we really haven't talked on the podcast yet about personalities, which is
Oh,
kind of what
man.
I want to explore.
I have a ton of things to say about.
All right. Well,
personalities.
better come up with them fast. But that's kind of what I want to talk about on this episode. It's just the idea of personality, kind of where it stems from. An interesting thing that I kind of wrote this morning that what you kind of hinted at though is kind of like the ideal of your parents. Like, do you believe that we are in some ways versions of our parents, right? Like we are kind of copies of them as born.
Oh, inherently?
Yeah.
Yeah, of course. I mean, we're made up of their DNA,
Yeah.
right? We are like in a very literal sense a replica
Mm-hmm.
of the two parents combined.
No.
I mean that in the most basic elemental levels, we are our parents.
Yeah.
for
So,
sure.
and what's been interesting for me is, living back at home for a while now, I've kind of been able to, I guess, revisit or just kind of, I don't want to say relearn, but kind of watch my parents and how they act and ask them questions about the things that they do and the things that they care about and kind of see how it also relates to things that I think and that I care about. And then also see the differences that have kind of come between us as I've kind of grown older and kind of formed my own ideas and my own opinions, which has been kind of cool.
Yeah.
Um,
No, I mean for me, my whole like I can I mean I could talk about this for hours for sure, but I've spent I mean a lot of my childhood was a little bit of a rebellion, not only against becoming my dad, like my dad and I, for better and for worse, are really, really close replicas of each other. I look like mom. I look like my dad. I look in the mirror now and I'm like, whoa, what the heck, David? What are you doing in the mirror, buddy? I think like my dad. I treat people like my dad. I tend to kind of manipulate situations similar to my dad. I have the same intellect. I use my brain in the same way. I use my physical stature in the same way.
Yeah.
Yeah, in a very real sense, I am my father, and every day that I grow a little bit, I become a little bit more. And I've spent 50 years trying desperately
Not
to
to.
fight against
Yeah.
the aspects that I didn't like about my dad.
Now, do
but-
you think, with that being said, do you think that
Well,
the
can I say one thing real quick?
Go ahead.
I'm sorry to interrupt you, but
I
I
interrupt
just
you.
want to kind of like add, like if my dad ever listens to this, like as I've gotten older, I have also appreciated more aspects about my dad. Like
Yeah.
I've realized that a lot of the things that he did and a lot of things that he kind of did for me, I understand them and I appreciate them much more now.
Well, you've kind of heard about what's been going on with my family and whatnot. And like now seeing these kind of things and the battles that my dad has gone through, it explains a lot of kind of the motivation or the reasons behind the things that he does
Yeah.
or that he has done in the past.
Yeah.
And when you're a kid, you just don't understand because you haven't had enough life experience to really like put yourself in someone else's shoes. You're
Yeah.
just a kid. You're like, oh, like I'm happy go lucky. There's no stress in my life.
Yeah.
And then when you grow older and being able to move back home, you could see like, oh, I mean, like,
Yeah.
I had my own stress in Minnesota, but like it's nothing like the stress of what my dad's going through right now. It's
Yeah.
crazy. So it definitely, I can agree with that. Now, what I will ask is we talk a lot about your dad. What about your mom? Are there any aspects that you take from your mom that you feel that are a part of your personality or how you treat people? Kind of
Oh,
where does she come into play?
absolutely. My dad is the stuff that is just inherent within me,
Okay.
like just my most natural base tendencies. And my mom is all the good things that I've learned, like creativity, being like, a lot of people, like a lot of my friends will kind of laugh at this, but my ability to kind of fake being happy, like for being in education,
Yeah.
like for 8 hours a day, I have to show up and pretend to be super happy and like excited, and that comes from my mom. Like the ability to deal with people. Like I'm not a real people person. Like I've kind of grown into that role, but yeah, so many aspects of my mom. Being loving, being caring, being sensitive, being in tune with other people, caring about other people, like when they're down. Yeah, all of my better aspects basically come from my mom.
No.
But yeah, I'm a very kind of good representation. I'm a perfect representation of my dad, but like my best aspects come from my mom
No.
for sure.
So I guess I can kind of agree with that in a similar way. So like I've realized like my dad is a very big personality, right? He like anytime you're in a situation with him, like it's noticeable, right? But my mom is kind of like behind closed doors, right?
Yeah.
And so a lot of my childhood was focused around just like seeing my father and whatnot, and like trying to make him laugh and whatnot, and my mom as well. Not to try and exclude her, but what I've been trying to do recently is like, okay, I know a lot of the things that my dad has as characteristics, and I can see them all in my brothers. Like they're all the replications of it. But now I've been trying to like focus on like, okay, what aspects of me are like my mom? What comes from my mom?
Mm.
And I think a lot of it is like my wittiness, right? Because my mom, the thing about my mom is she's an absolute sweetheart. And we talked about our mothers and important women in our lives. A great episode, one of our best. And in that episode, I just talk about kind of like how sweet and caring she is, which is something that I definitely developed from her. But also, like when I talk to, so recently my uncle has been around and I was kind of asking him about what my mom was like when my dad and mom were first dating. Because I've never been able to see my mom from a standpoint other than she is my mother, right? I've never
Yeah,
gotten to
yeah,
see her be like an adult that doesn't have any motivation or caring towards me. Like she can be her own individual, right?
yeah,
With me, and there's also like a stereotype of how moms are with sons versus daughters, and they're always like super loving and sweet to sons, but then they're kind of like chippy with their daughters. I wouldn't know, but I've seen stuff about that. And my mom, like, she's got like a chip on her shoulder. Like, she is snarky. She's got some orneriness to her, and she's witty. And my dad's side of the family is also pretty witty. So it has like this beautiful kind of like mesh. And that's where I kind of get it from. So it's been interesting just to kind of see because my dad has this, like I said, such a big personality. So it's very easy to be like, okay, that I get from him, that I get from him. But I've just been trying really hard to be like, okay, what comes from my mom? Like where is that at? So it's been interesting to kind of dissect that and think about those things. So
well, for me, I mean, this has been, I mean, this is a really kind of influential aspect of who I am today. But um, I have spent so much energy and time and effort and kind of rebellion, in not trying to be my dad.
yep.
Like I just saw a lot of negative aspects for a long time, and kind of rebelled significantly against him. And I just think it's so interesting because the very things that I fought against are some of the things that I kind of like about myself now. Um, and but like in that aspect too, I think it's really, really important, like just to kind of like maybe get a lesson in this episode, for me, the most important lesson is this in this whole conversation is this. I have always thought up until very, very recently, and even now, I still have to kind of remind myself of this, is I am not my dad. I am my own person.
Mhm.
Like I'm not destined to be my dad. Like
Yeah.
the mistakes that I've seen him make, the ways maybe that he's treated people or whatever, I've always thought like, oh, that's just my path. Like that's where I'm headed. That's exactly the person that I'm going to be. And for me, I just feel like I constantly have to remind myself, because even right now I'm going through some things where I'm kind of struggling. Like I feel like I don't deserve things because I'm this way or this way or this way or whatever.
Mm.
And I just have to remind myself, like, Highland, you have a choice, buddy.
No.
You are an individual. You are not David McLaughlin. You are Highland McLaughlin.
No.
Yes, you have a lot of these traits. Yes, you have a lot of these characteristics. Yes, you treat people in some of the same ways. But every moment you have a chance to make a decision, right?
No.
You do not, it is, David McLaughlin is not making these decisions for you.
No.
You are making the decisions, and you need to be conscious, and you need to realize that you have the ability to create your own path. And I think that's really important, because I think a lot of times we kind of give in. Like a lot of the kids that I work with, they come from these backgrounds, and their parents are whatever, right? And they just say, I'm going to be the same
Yeah.
way. This is my destiny. And in some ways, it's very true, right? Like alcoholism, drug addiction, all of these things are, it is possible. Like if you grow up in that environment, it's
Yeah.
highly likely that you're going to follow in their path.
Yeah.
But it's really, really important to realize that you are an individual. You
Yeah.
have power. You have the ability to create whatever life you desire. And it's not predestined.
Right.
And but that's a really hard concept, because like I've spent half a century trying to figure this out, and I still battle it. Right? It's crazy. But yeah, I think that's a really important lesson, though. Really, really important. And just to always keep that in the background, like you are not destined to be anything. And that's a whole nother conversation. But
Yeah.
I do feel
I like that. You're not destined to be anything.
yeah, you can create, and if you are not the person that you want to be right now, make changes.
Yeah.
Do things differently. You don't have to follow the path that you're on right now. There's
Yeah.
always options.
Yeah.
So that's my little soapbox speech for today.
Well, I like the soapbox speech. Well, on that note, I think this will be a shorter one. I think that's all I got for this one.
Oh.
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah, I think that's good. I think it's good.
I mean, I could keep going, but yeah,
I mean, if you have
think
any
it's-
parting words, I mean, you're more than welcome to.
No,
but,
I think I'm willing to end on that, because I just think like for me, it's just really, really important to feel self-empowered, and to
Yeah.
feel that you do have the ability to become the person that you want to be, and to take advantage of that, and just keep that in the back of your mind, and just really strive to not let life form you, but
Mhm.
to form the life that you want. So
I mean, hey, I couldn't agree more. If I had something else to add, I would. But you took the words right out of my mouth. Well,
all right.
with that being said, thank you guys for listening and watching. If you ever want to share anything with us, you can reach out to us at NopeOpePod@gmail.com. The book is still available in the podcast description, alongside a link to our website, which has some of Island's art pieces and whatnot, if you ever want to buy those.
Yeah.
And yeah, with that being said, we'll see you guys in the next one.